Good evening, or I guess morning, depending on where you are in the world. And welcome to Zwei, Null, the TLG Gwent podcast. My name is Jaggerous, and I'm joined, as always, on the hosting desk, even though we have various desks, by Spyro. How's it going, Spyro?
Hey everyone, thanks, Jaggers. Yep, we are I'm sure you guys know familiar to these two faces. We have Freddy and Kolemoen, both finalists in the last Gwent Masters. So big welcome to you guys. And how are you all doing?
Yeah, feeling great. Thanks for having me.
And Kolemoen, of course, the winner of Gwent Masters. How are things at your side after that big win?
I'm doing okay right now. Actually, I randomly got vaccinated on Monday, and then I was kind of sick for the last 2 days. But now I'm kind of okay again.
Now you're ready to face the Gwent ladder again.
Yeah.
I'm worried. I'm getting vaccinated tomorrow, so I don't want to get sick. I know some people get hit really badly with it, though, and some people are like, it doesn't affect them at all. And I suppose it depends who you get. You know, if you get AstraZeneca, if you get Pfizer, if you get... I can't even think.
Yeah, I had the AstraZeneca.
Yeah, so lots of big news to discuss. Obviously, we had Gwent Masters over the last weekend. The fabled Gwent Masters, which has been delayed many, many times. Finally, it happened this weekend. And yeah, it was very, very exciting. I must say, there were some interesting decks for sure. And obviously, you two were the two finalists. So I just got a question for both of you guys. How was the prep work going into? I guess I'll start with Freddy. Like, how was your prep going into Masters? Were you like grinding it out like every day for multiple hours, or how did it go?
Yeah, pretty much. It was quite brutal, I'm not gonna lie. I think I actually played a bit too much, because I was playing like even the month before, like leading up to the qualifier and stuff, like every day, like super, like I don't know, 8 hours or something minimum every day, and then a lot of the decks that were good then, like, were just not in any way useful, right? And I played like a ton of Arrakis Swarm and stuff, and then just not going to play it in the tournament, so it felt a bit wasted in many ways some of that time. But yeah, no, it was quite busy, but I think I'm quite happy with how much, it would feel really bad to not put all the time that you could into prepping for that tournament, I think. So yeah.
Yeah. And then,
I mean,
how did
if
it
you
go
won
for
with
you?
no prep, I was gonna say if you won with no prep, it would probably feel fine. but if you got 3-0 at the start, it would feel pretty bad.
Kolemoen's gonna be like, yeah, I played like an hour a day. It was chill, easy.
No. We also practiced pretty hardcore. Like I met up with the Marcus like 3 weeks before the tournament started. Obviously already played before that a bit, right? But there was a big patch, and yeah, after the patch, I just played some ladder to familiarize myself with what could be good. And then when the Marcus came here, we basically mostly played against other players. We had like a big prep group where we had like top players from our team, but also few TLG players were in there as well. Help us out, and yeah.
So I got a question for you, because Freddie had an interesting point where you discussed like you practice for a certain meta, and then suddenly like it almost shifts in a way. Like, for example, the last qualifiers, I believe top 64, there was a lot of like monster targeting, specifically towards like the V and Kelly matchups, and then the next weekend in the Masters, suddenly people are targeting Swarm decks. Like, it almost like different metas changing between times. Is there a way you can kind of feel it out, or you just kind of have to guess and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do and I hope it works out? Or do you have any way of sensing what you think is going to be the strategy of other players or whatnot?
I think it's pretty hard to predict the strategy of the players at Masters based on the qualifiers, because people put a lot more time in the prep for Masters than for qualifiers. And there are also like there were like a lot of players in there where they're probably gonna bring like their own like unique strategies. Like Freddy, Magpie, Life Coach always kind of bring their own stuff. So I didn't really try to exactly predict what people are gonna bring, because
So
I
just try to
just
bring
felt like
decks
it's
to
not possible.
So you
I'm
just try
pretty
to bring
sure-
decks you're comfortable with, or
I mostly try to avoid targets, I guess. Like
okay, I see.
I didn't want to be weak to monster and to white targets. And
see.
at the same time, we were trying to like soft target Skellige a bit because we thought Skellige is kind of a deck that is.
I mean, you
pretty
definitely dodged a
strong.
bullet. Sorry, you definitely dodged a bullet when you say you try to dodge white punish, because obviously quitting into life coach there with all those white punish must have been a huge sigh of relief for you.
Yeah. I mean, we actually had like that was a pretty close decision between elves and gift for us in the end, right? Because elves is just generally a stronger deck, but it runs into the problem of potentially getting targeted. And Damo went with the elves in the end, but Hajik and me went with Nature's Gift, with a more safe choice, I guess.
I think the other thing to be aware of is you guys have to lock in your decks like a little bit in advance, right? So I feel like the top 64 maybe happened after the decks got locked in. Maybe I'm making that up.
No.
Oh, was it just
No,
before the decks
that was
got
quite a
locked
while
in?
before. Because, well, I mean, yeah, it was like a week or two before.
Okay, so then you could have used those.
Yeah. I kind of had a bit of a different feeling to Kolemoen, maybe, like, because I was thinking along the lines of like the solid players in the tournament that are not doing their own stuff, like Kolemoen and yeah, maybe Damorkis, Adzakov. I thought they were probably going to be more sort of basing their lineup on the qualifiers, right, and what happened there. And basically the meta of the qualifier was basically there were people with elves, there were people targeting elves, and there were people who did not even mess around with any of that, and they just didn't want to be targeted at all, right? And I think one of the players that won was Nick R, and he was not being targeted by elves. Like, that was the strategy he took. And the other person that won was bringing elves and maybe targeting elves a little bit as well. So I figured that maybe the meta was going in that direction for some of the more solid players, right? Like Kolemoen, we're going to play sort of the safer lineup because that had proven to be sort of the best. I don't know if that was the thinking, Colin. Maybe you were not looking at it like the qualifier did well here, but just in general, it looked to me like the meta sort of was going in a direction of the safer decks was sort of the good strategy for the tournament.
I mean, I can see that like it makes sense for players that are like outside of our our Team our chooser group to try and predict what we're gonna bring, because we're obviously like a group of 3 players that are probably gonna bring similar decks. So like if you manage to predict us, it's already like that's pretty good for you, right?
Yeah.
Like for us, it's more hard because if we are like from our perspective, it's like 5 players are probably gonna bring different stuff. Live coaching game might bring the same, right? But apart from that, everyone has like different stuff. So it's kind of hard to base your lineup around like one particular player in there. But yeah, if you're not in our group, then it's like, okay, you're trying to see what these 3 will bring and make some sense.
And I guess for you it can be a bit awkward, right? Because you're all prepping together in some way, and you can't you don't want to counter one of the other guys who's also bringing like similar stuff to you, right? You kind of all have to kind of hedge your bets a bit and play similar.
Yeah, you can't really bring completely different decks, right? Because like if one person has a deck that's really good against what someone else has, then they're probably not going to want to commit that. Yeah.
I think Adzakov was actually talking a bit about that to me. He was saying that he like yoinked or maybe he was saying it on the stream actually. He was saying like he kind of yoinked your lineup at the last minute and didn't actually help too much with making it.
Yeah, he had a different lineup at first, and then he lost to our lineup, and then he took ours.
Well, yeah.
I guess he's like hedging his bets there in case he matches into you guys. I mean, that is kind of quite likely to happen in an 8-player tournament. So he's like, oh, better just change my lineup. How much notice did you guys have about World Masters, in terms of getting back into the game? Because I know a lot of players for World Masters 1 were kind of on hiatus until this happened. How much kind of forewarning did you have? Like, oh, there's going to be a tournament. Did you have a couple months to prepare? Or was it just kind of more, here's your month to prepare and off you go?
I can't even remember. I think it was a month.
I think it was
a month and a day, or a month and a week.
Yeah, I could look it up when we get the email. I think it was about a month.
Yeah. I saw that email. I was like, "Oh, dude, it's happening! Fuck!" I just freaking started jamming games. extremely rapidly.
Yeah, it took a while. I mean, how long ago was this event initially supposed to happen? It's quite a while ago. I mean, I guess it was actually only supposed to happen like a year ago, technically speaking, and then it got delayed.
No,
but...
a bit more than that. I think it was like March 2020.
Okay.
How did you guys feel when you got cancelled? Because for me, I was at the gym and I like came out of the gym and my gym has no phone signal and my phone was just blowing up. It was like the Tuesday and I was due to fly on the Thursday, so it was 2 days before my flight, and came out of the gym in the evening and just was like, oh, the event is cancelled. That was heartbreaking. I was so gutted.
I mean, for us, I think it was one day before because we were flying on Wednesday usually, and yeah, it was kind of annoying, right? Because we practiced a lot for it, right? We had all this ready, everything was submitted, like practice 2 or 3 weeks for it, and then it gets canceled. Yeah.
Speaking of the list, I'm curious, what were the lists? They would actually have the list. I want to know what those lists were that were the unseen lists that we never got
Yeah.
to.
Dude, they were gonna release the list, but I was like, maybe they shouldn't release the list because I lost my mind a little bit with that prep.
I feel like I have the list in an email somewhere because I definitely spent a lot of time going through them, looking at matchups, talking with other casters, with players, with TLG. Like I was good because I put in so much work for that, and then it just was like, I mean, you guys probably put in more work. Let's be real, but to have all that just taken away it felt really bad for me, and I can imagine for the players as well. It was so anticlimactic.
Yeah, I think I remember being very dying. Like I was very dying, like lots of pain in my body and such, because like playing all night to get the decks through, right? And then I think it was only like the next day or something, right? That they said it was delayed. It was very sad moment. But yeah.
Yeah, I think they canceled it on Tuesday, and on Wednesday was the flight, and maybe on Monday was the deck submission deadline, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And did Demorcus come to yours, Kolemoen, as well to prep? I feel like people had been traveling to prep to different people's houses. Did Green Knight go and see you, Freddie? Am I making that up completely?
Yeah. Green Knight was with me. I thought Demorcus was everyone in Poland already or something. So I remember some parties and such in my apartment going on.
For last Masters, you mean?
Was that last Masters or was it a different? Because I thought Demorcus and Tailbot and people were sort of at my apartment, but I don't know. Maybe that was a different event. Because I think some people traveled already, right, before they actually.
No, I think we just traveled anyways because they couldn't cancel the flights anymore, right? And then we just went there to hang out, right? Wasn't it like that for last Master?
Yeah.
Just have a party at Freddy's place. It's cancelled, but party at Freddy's place.
I remember.
Obviously. Yeah. Oh, sorry. You go on.
I just remember like absolute shenanigans, like, and me and Panda were not very impressed. I must say, we were. People were spilling alcohol on the floor, and we were like, "Guys, what is going on?" It's good.
It's fine when it's someone else's place, but when it's your place, it's like, no, what are you doing? Yeah. This is why you never host. You always attend. You never ever host.
So I got an interesting question I was kind of thinking about. So obviously we did see some very heavy targeting strategies in the weekend from Masters. We saw obviously, I believe it was Life Coach and Game King had a super hard targeting strategy onto the Swarm lineup on. And obviously this type of lineup is a strategy we've seen time and time again in these tournaments where you kind of sometimes you go all in on a strategy. Say, okay, I'm going to target this deck. I know Kolemoen, you've had this happen to you, I believe, one time in open beta with Super JJ and Neka countering. Do you feel like it's something that's just a viable, it's a thing that's just how it is, or would you like? Is there something that could be done about this whole type of situation about? So it must feel bad, right? You bring a deck, you bring a lineup, and then you just queue into the person hard counter, and you go home without much you can say about it.
I don't know. Like the only thing you could do about it is like play a different format, I guess, instead of Conquest. But I guess as long as you play Conquest, I think there's always going to be targeting is always going to be part of the game.
Yeah, it feels very bad to be Tailbot, I think. That is just not like he's probably gonna win the whole tournament if he manages to dodge the Lamberts.
And, yeah, and it's hard for him because he's probably the player that stayed the most with Gwent. You know, he was prevalent throughout season 2 as well. So in terms of sticking around through the thick and the thin, Talbot was like, I guess, a lot of people's favorite just because he's been around the scene for so long and he's most up to date with the current state of Gwent because he's just been playing it the most. And then to go into that situation with Life Coach, I feel like it's got to be a little bit soul destroying, just a little bit.
Yeah, I guess it's
Yeah.
the risk you take, right? He took the risk. He had the lineup that could mash up all the safe lineups, but yeah, in the end you get life coached, and it's not a good.
I wasn't actually so sure about his lineup because he had this Blaze of Glory in there. So I felt like our lineups were actually pretty decent against him because like he had a discard Blaze of Glory, which was like kind of a deck that we were soft targeting.
He wasn't Blood Eagle, was he? Maybe he wasn't. I thought he was Blood Eagle, and I think that deck's kind of okay into like Uprising and such. I don't know. I might be wrong about that. I could be super wrong.
In our test, we did pretty well against both versions of it, but I wasn't really sure why he didn't bring elves in this lineup. Is basically why.
Yeah.
Like, if he had elves instead of Blaze of Glory, he would have been like pretty good against our lineup.
That's a good point.
Overall.
I was kind of thinking if they ever hypothetically, if they made these things double elimination, but obviously because too long, you make it so that there's like multiple streams and multiple games going on at once to get through the games faster, so that you can actually play, you can get through the games. And so if you have like 2 official casts happening at once on 2 different channels that can get through the losers bracket and the winners bracket at the same time, so it doesn't waste too much time, then it would make it a lot more consistent in terms of, you know, if you do end up getting like hard targeted, you at least you go to the loser bracket and you can still make it through whatnot. I don't know if that's something that they could maybe ever possibly do, but I was just kind of thinking that might be an idea.
Yeah, I mean, from a player perspective, it would be pretty nice, I think. I don't know if they are, willing to do something like that. Like in theory, it shouldn't be that hard, right? They would need some more casters, I guess. But
yeah, I guess the concern is like, you know, splitting the viewership so you don't have that one channel with big numbers. But arguably, you'd still have the viewership across the Gwent directory in that situation, and people can always go back and watch other matches. You know, if you're enjoying the tournament, you know, you can always try and like. I guess you have to try and like avoid seeing the bracket, but then you could always after the tournament go back and watch, you know, the other channels or that sort of thing. And it means if people have caster preferences, which is really common, you know, speaking from experience, there's certain people who absolutely love my casting and some people who really, really hate it. Then if you have a split like that, people can pick and choose casters, and people already pick and choose casters going to unofficial streams anyway. So I guess it works in that kind of capacity. But I guess it depends on if you want the entire tournament to be viewable live, it doesn't work. So it's something that I guess CDPR would have to make a decision about.
It's quite a cool idea, isn't it? I remember watching like StarCraft tournaments. I think they quite often did this sort of like round robin thing, right? And then there's sometimes like watching this player play and that player play, and I guess you've got the caster preference. You could also, if someone like, I don't know, prefers watching a certain player, like maybe he's like, yes, I want to just follow Kolemoen the whole way through the tournament because he's a god and whatnot. Then they can do that as well. That'd be pretty sick, actually. I think more content in general, right? As well.
They do that in other games. I've seen it happen in Call of Duty as well. That's where I initially thought of the concept. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just feel like it must feel terrible to just bring a lineup and then get eliminated game 1 because you just get hard targeted.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a huge amount of pressure, isn't there, as well? Would take the pressure off a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, I do want to play more tournaments because I really like playing the tournaments, man. It's so much fun, and it's such a high, and like, yeah, it just feels really good. Might be hard to win Masters 3. I don't know. There's some good players in Gwent, right? So, Apparently, there's a sound problem, by the way.
No,
I
it's
don't know if
only
you-
me.
Yeah.
It was on my end.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
so they
shame.
missed the question. They just heard the yeah. The question was if Freddie felt inspired to win season 3 for the record.
I see.
So
But
they
yeah,
heard
I
you, just
definitely-
not me.
Yeah,
Should
yeah.
be fine, right?
We good?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, so it's fixed.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to play more tournaments. I would love to. I feel like I have more to prove, but see how that goes. You never know, right?
Awesome. And then for Kolemoen, the question was, did this win make it impossible to ever get motivated again for another tournament? You know, you won the biggest prize probably in Gwent history. That I would imagine that there will be. I don't think we're going bigger. So at that point, it's like to just hang up your hat or your keyboard and sail off into the sunset.
I mean, I'm definitely still motivated to play in tournaments. It's more a question of the motivation to qualify for them, right? Because qualifying for them is a lot of work and effort. Takes a lot of time, but yeah, I think I might still go for it at some point. Maybe even this season. We'll see.
I suppose a good thing is like once you qualify for an open, if you win the open, you're then qualified for World Masters. So you kind of have that coming up. So then you don't have to put the time in as much to grind out the other tournaments necessarily. You know, so that's one of those things that if you can get through an open and win an open, then you can chill for the rest of the year potentially, if you know that's how you feel. But at the same time, like, how do you find grinding ladder in general at the moment compared to, I guess, how it was in the past? Because I feel like grinding ladder is a bit of a different experience now.
Not sure if it's that much different. I don't know. Like it can be potentially fun at some point, but it also gets tiring. And I don't know. Like it's just like the fact that you have to play so many games like every season to qualify for tournaments. Like at some point, it's just at some point you just don't enjoy it that much anymore, right?
Yeah, definitely can be
So-
difficult like when you have to play, depending how obviously win rate is 300 to like sometimes 1,000+ games from some players every month to make it to these qualifiers. And then obviously there's no guarantee. So in the qualifiers, you got to still win those qualifiers, and it's not easy. It's definitely a long road to get to Gwent Open, and even longer road still to get to Gwent Masters. So definitely a lot of work that players have to put in to get there. And I can definitely see how it can be tiring to do this repetitively, for sure.
Also, all the people in the chat being like, just win. I'm like, well, that sounds like a loser attitude to me. All you people saying like winning is difficult. And I get it. There's a lot of effort because you have to just get into the qualifier. And then once you're in the qualifier, you have to win the qualifier. And then once you win the qualifier, you'd have to win the open. So I do understand that it's not as simple as just win an open and go from there. But it's something that you could do, I suppose. And our last question for both of you is how much money for you to go bald forever? That's the question.
That's a million.
Forever is a long time.
Freddie's fine. He started to hedge his hair situation down below as well, so you're covered there.
I think Kolemoen's got a bit of a
Kolemoen too.
a beard going on here as well.
I mean, I don't know. Like the problem with going bald forever is, would I then have to also like shave every day, or is that something that would be taken care of?
Oh,
that's
that's a lot
big.
It's
a lot
gonna
of
be
Get a
effort.
personal, get an assistant for free. Yeah.
You got to factor that into the cost, really, the cost of you spending time.
Yeah, if I actually have to spend time every day shaving, then it would be quite expensive, I think. Like a few million, maybe. I don't know.
There's all the people in the chat who are like have a receding hairline are just like reeing at this question. They're like, I don't even get. I go bald for free. Like, I wish someone would pay me to go bald. So that was our question. So that's our question. So now we can talk about like current Gwent. We can talk about our new cards, the price of power, and how people are feeling. I mean, the meta's not settled at all. Let's be real. We don't have a meta yet, which is great. This is like the Wild West of Gwent.
And we have Clog as a meta. That's a fun meta. But yeah, lots of new stuff happening, and it's gonna be interesting to see how it all develops. I mean, I don't know what are you. I'm not sure how much time you guys have had spent on with the expansion so far. I know, Freddie, you've been playing it a bunch. How are you feeling about things so far?
I've been jamming. I'm liking it actually. It feels like every deck that I've got my hands on has been just everything feels super OP. Like all of the new bronzes are all like so incredible. Like I've never seen anything like it. And yeah, there's some really cool new archetypes. I was playing some of the Northern Realms mages. That stuff is bonkers with the patience, and they're like growing and learning and reading their books, right? And then they come back later and they're still very knowledgeable. And yeah, just like a lot of fun times. Koshchi is like somehow viable now. Like, I don't know, it's pretty sick. Apart from the cloggers stuff, right? Cloggers can I don't like that stuff. I think most of us don't, but yeah, no, it's quite fun actually. So far.
And Kolemoen, have you like had your hands, or are you still just like chilling, taking a break, or have you jumped in on any games of Gwent so far?
I haven't played any games because I was lying in bed the last 2 days.
Oh no.
I watched a bit of streams. I mean, I saw the cards. But yeah, I mean, it does look like there's some really OP stuff out there, like the Nilka bronzes.
Yeah,
absolutely insane.
You know, speaking of the Nilfgaard bronze, I had a question because I've been seeing this topic being debated so much in various places like Discord and whatnot. Which bronze do you think is better, the Blightmaker combo Nilfgaard or the Witch Apprentice, the piggy from Monsters? Which one do you guys think is more OP?
The Nilfgaard one, I think.
Yeah.
It's unconditional, right? Like the monster one you have to kind of work for.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I kind of also thought of. It's they're pretty strong though, and I must say also, what do we have? What's the artifact that creates a bronze?
Megascope.
Megascope. That one you can pull off all kinds of crazy combos with that one. That one has
like
so much
crows.
potential.
Oh, I love the crow. I've seen some crow shenanigans going on with that. It's not good, but it's fun. I think that I like Megascope because it's not necessarily a great card, but it's fun. But the problem with it is that if there's bronzes that are busted, then that can then become an issue because you're creating more bronzes that are busted, I guess.
I mean, it's interesting. It kind of also passes the provision. Like usually when it comes to cards that can play other cards, the higher like they make like things like Freya's Blessing. They make it 6 provisions because it has the ability to resurrect any like bronze card. Whereas Megascope is 4 provisions, so you could copy a 6 provision card with like a Greatsword, for example, and it exceeds its own provision curve in a way, which is interesting.
I mean, it's quite restricted though, and it doesn't work well with deploy effects, right? And it's also delayed. So
yeah,
I think it's okay. Like it only works with like a few cards. So and with those, it can potentially be strong. Definitely a card with a lot of potential also in the future with new cards being released. But I think for now, like I didn't really see anything that's like too broken with it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've been loving the patch. I've been playing some Rain. I've been raining on people's parades, just playing some good old wholesome point slam Skilliger. I played Hyper Thin Nilfgaard and then matched into someone else playing Hyper Thin Nilfgaard. And so we both Vilgefortzed each other's Tibor out, and we were playing like Yennefer and Triss and stuff for their face value because we had no cards left in our deck. So those shenanigans are there. And that's because of this new package, right? The new Nilfgaard thinning package. You can kind of go for Hyper Thin strategies. And that side of things. And yeah, I think the ladder is really diverse at the moment. You see lots of people trying different things. We'll have to wait and see where it settles, but I don't want it to settle. Like, I like the fiesta that is, you know, patch week, where people are trying different things and no one's really settled on one thing that you're seeing prevalently. Is that the word I'm looking for? So yeah, I'm having a great time.
It's fun. It's very fun. Like everyone kind of experimenting with all kinds of different things. I mean, you got, as Freddie mentioned, a lot of decks look broken at first. Like they just everything seems broken. Like all these new crazy combos. I saw decks playing like Mage NR with a bunch of Megascopes copying the Mage Infiltrator, just playing Mage after Mage after Mage. I saw Koshi decks going crazy. I saw I've seen all kinds of nutty decks, and it's interesting. I mean, obviously, a lot of these decks might actually turn out to not be viable, but in the beginning, no one really knows what's viable and what's bad and what's good, and so everyone's just trying out some stuff, and it's a lot of fun being able to just build decks and experiment with new stuff. Until you get into
for me, I generally don't like the start of a new meta that much, I have to say. Like, even though new decks, like coming up with new decks is fun, I just don't like the feeling of not knowing what to expect in the meta, like not knowing what I'm supposed to tech against, what my opponents will have, and so on. And just
I must say that is such a Kolemoen thing to say.
Yeah, I don't like it because I can't play at my highest level of skill because I have like my friend could be playing what some kind of clown nonsense. There's always clown nonsense going on. That is fair. And I will say
Kolemoen wants the calculated, like knowing exactly what his opponent's playing and to predict every mood piece by piece, which I can respect. I can respect that.
I will say I'm impressed that like such a small expansion has had such a big impact on the state of the game. Because they've split this expansion into 3 and we're getting like, was it 20 odd cards each time? There was a fear that, it wasn't going to have as much of a shakeup as it has. But I guess if you're releasing only 20 cards at a point, you have to make those cards impactful. And I think it's like decent that CDPR has managed to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Like in previous expansions, a lot of the time you release like, I don't know, 100 new cards, but then only 25 of those even see play, right? Which, if you release, I don't know how many cards are released now, not that many, but if you make every single one of them impactful, almost every single one, that can have pretty much the same impact as a full expansion where only like a quarter of the cards actually see play.
Yeah, you just got to be a bit careful with the power creep, right? Because
Yeah,
it might make every other card in the game just a bit redundant at a certain point. Hopefully we're not going to see that after this stuff settles, and then it's just I have to play Witch Pig in every deck, and I have to play freaking Megascope Greatsword because it's just super OP, like, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Witch Pig.
That would be it.
I think it's okay if they make the stuff, like if they err on the side of making stuff too strong in the beginning, as long as they rein things in that are really too much out of proportion after a season, maybe, and when it becomes clear what's really OP and what's not.
I think it's a challenge though, because I was gonna say card games are always gonna have power creep. Like you can't really avoid it in a game that iterates with new cards. And when Homecoming first came out, like Gwent really needed power creep. Like it was like this game drastically needs some power creep. And as we go forward though, we're kind of getting to the point where suddenly we've had the power creep and the game feels really, really good. And then there's the fear that they need to kind of rein it in a little bit. With maybe these like hyper thinning Nilfgaard combos, for example, that thin and play about 80 points in one go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind the power creep, especially on bronze cards, because I feel like bronze cards compared to gold cards for a long time have been a little bit weaker. But I must say the problem becomes when you bring new cards out that are super strong, and then you don't bring up the other old cards. It kind of feels a bit weird. Like when you have cards like Blightmaker playing for 11 points, which doesn't necessarily have to be a terrible. I mean, I guess maybe a point or two left might be a bit too much. Might be fine. But when you compare it to other bronze cards, like if you look at Fast here, that buffed it recently. It now is a very, very, very conditional 7/4. It just feels a bit left out.
Yeah, I think we will end up being in a place where there are just like the new cards are kind of auto-include in decks, right? And that's. But the good thing is, if everything feels really broken, then nothing feels broken, right? And it's just kind of more fun because all of your stuff pops off really hard, and then theirs does as well. But you're just kind of vibing and having a good time. But maybe they need to bring everything up maybe to the same level. And speaking of broken, what do you guys think will actually even be the best on this patch? By the way, in terms of faction.
So far, I'm thinking Syndicate and Nilfgaard look pretty strong. Monsters looks okay too. I'm not 100% sure I feel about Scoia'tael right now, but Nilfgaard and Syndicate feel to me kind of very good right now.
And what's the deal with the Syndicate cards? Are they?
I mean,
we're talking about Blightmaker and Pig and stuff, but
but like Syndicate got I've been trying it out. I'm not 100% sure, but what's it? Witchfinder? I think that new bounty giver. Like it's just another. If you played like a line pocket deck, for example, it's just another threat that your opponent has to answer. They have to answer your cleaver. They have to answer your drill. And now you've got this card that's just pumping out bounties that they also have to answer. And if any one of these cards stick, it's a pretty scary concept to go up against this card that's just slamming bounties. And if it does get answered, it's still playing for 10 points. It puts a bounty on opponent's card. And if it gets answered, that's one less answer they can use on maybe a cleaver or one of the other threats. So I don't know. The card looks kind of nuts to me, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. I
Yeah,
remember
it's
it was on Syndicate, so being the strongest.
Yeah, I mean, they were super good last patch, right? I think. I wonder if people still play the Poison Boys, or if I can't really see a world where they don't. But
Roland
Yeah.
and
Yeah, they're kind of nuts.
mm.
I mean, I guess if you're playing with pockets, then you're not playing them. Can't really fit them in that deck, I think.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah, I
maybe
guess
the
that's the
bounties
difference.
take the place.
It's kind of the difference, I guess, between Pockets and Cove is the poison package, or the Poison Brothers.
Yeah.
The biggest difference as opposed to like Drill. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting. The Nilfgaard obviously also, I mean, Nilfgaard, as we all know, the thing about the bronze cards, the Blight Makers, is they give Nilfgaard a way to contest run one, actually possibly a lot of the time force your opponent out of run one. And when Nilfgaard is given round control, that's quite scary. In the past, Nilfgaard's come in the faction, just gets abused in round one, has to pass early, defend the bleed, hope for the best. Whereas now they can actually control the game much better, which is actually a pretty scary concept to give Nilfgaard.
I think
Yeah,
it's
I
just
can
funny.
definitely see it.
I was gonna say, I think it's just funny that Nilfgaard. I've said this before. It's like a prophecy that Nilfgaard has this thing that CDPR does, where basically they give them something really good. Every so often they'll give them something really good, and then they'll spend the next however many patches nerfing Nilfgaard. So they gave us like Brath. They gave us what's it called? Masquerade Ball, for example. They gave us like Masquerade Ball and just generally good cards, but these cards don't really synergize with anything else. So like we had Masquerade Ball, we had Brathens, we had Usurper. These are the kind of good cards. And then from there, they spend the next few patches just nerfing Nilfgaard, nerfing Nilfgaard. And then they get to the point where we're like, oh, we should probably give them something good again. But we're not going to give them something that's really synergistic or that works with them as a faction identity. We're going to give them like a good card. One good card, or in this case, it's two good cards, but they work together. We'll give them 2 OP cards, and then we'll spend the next 5 patches nerfing these OP cards and adjusting things until we're back to where we started. And the problem is that they haven't given Nilfgaard any identity. So instead of giving them cards that synergize and work together and are powerful because of the way they interact with other cards, they're just like, bam, here's like 8 million points for 4 provisions. And then we'll have Nilfgaard nerfs for the next little while, and that'll make the community happy because the community hates Nilfgaard. And then we'll get to the next patch, and they'll do what they did here, is, oh, here's something good for Nilfgaard again.
Yeah. The problem is, right, everyone just hates the Nilfgaard identity, like the cloggers and the stealing stuff, and it's just not the way. I will say that I was talking a bit with Mogwai, who's in my stream earlier today, and he was saying that to him, like, all the spying synergies and stuff felt really good, and it felt kind of like the old days in a sense. So potentially we're looking at it from our perspective of like, you know, we've been with Homecoming Gwent the entire time, and Nilfgaard has changed a little bit each time. But maybe from a new player perspective, it is quite a, you know, the bull and the poisons coming out and the spies everywhere. Like maybe that is just the way that Nilfgaard should be. But yeah.
Yeah, I personally don't actually mind the spies and the ball and the poisons that much for Nilfgaard. I just don't like the stealing, I guess, and the clogging.
Yeah.
Your concepts are just, I don't know, clogging should not exist in my opinion.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that one as well.
Yeah.
Definitely been a bit annoying on ladder.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I can see the issue that people have with Nilfgaard. I understand, like, people don't really like stuff that touches their stuff or steals their stuff, or it's like if someone robbed your house. You're not exactly going to be very happy about it, are you? The issue that they have is that they haven't given Nilfgaard any other identity to lean on. So as soon as they start to take away from the spying and the clogging and that side of things, the faction is just bad. Whereas if they took away from that while also making, you know, soldiers better, or assimilate kind of, it falls into the touching your stuff archetype. But, you know, if they made the other archetypes better, then maybe you could get away with taking away from the copying and the clogging and that. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we get some like Nilfgaard soldier buffs at some point. I wouldn't mind seeing some Nilfgaard soldier archetypes, but unfortunately, it just feels like a very like half-done archetype, and it keeps getting like buffed, but the buffs just don't do anything for it in the end. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we should get some mage and agent synergy. We have a little bit. we got a Fringilla, but she got nerfed. That would have been so sick, man.
Mhm.
And yeah, maybe
That's
that's the way.
also-
Because you could keep Blightmaker, get rid of Blightmaker's Lady Mage, the one that gets summoned from the deck. And then at that point, if you're putting a mage on the top, like maybe you want to draw Fringilla, you want to draw Vilgeforce, you can use that as a way of making the deck consistent. You still get the payoff of spawning the little golem dude, but you don't get the additional payoff of here's the 2-point mage that does 2 damage. So you've taken away a little bit of the bonus, but you're still using it for consistency, then make the mages kind of better. And you could have a really good Nilfgaard mage archetype, actually.
Yeah. I was playing the Blightmaker guy, and it just felt so... The card's really sick, but then you realize, oh, I have to thin out this 4 provision card every time because it's mega broken, and if I don't, I just feel like a bit of a silly guy for putting that card in my deck. But it's so cool when you put you can put Brathens on the top, and then Joachim into Brathens, and my mages are working. Like, I don't know. I think that's a cool direction for Nilfgaard. Take notes, CDPR. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind. I mean, the numbers might be a bit off, but I think the idea is pretty good. But yeah, it's definitely. I would really love if Nilfgaard had some more, because right now Nilfgaard's been kind of crutching on Masquerade Ball for God knows how long. Nilfgaard has been just the ball faction for so long, and the only thing that even challenged that concept was basically cloggers, and that I'm not, as Kolemoen mentioned, not really a deck that I'm super happy being the new challenge to that archetype.
So let's talk about Northern Realms. How do we feel about, because we talked a little bit about Syndicate, we talked about Nilfgaard. How do we feel about Northern Realms?
Amazing, mate. I really like the changes, actually. I think the Shani change is very cool, and the Gerhardt card is so sick, and the Patience mechanic as a whole is actually one of the... I don't know if they intended, they must have intended, right, the Patience to carry over between rounds, but the fact that it does is really, really cool. I think that's actually probably my favorite mechanic in the whole game now, actually, because you're like playing an engine in round 1, right? But that engine is sort of, it's like a carryover engine, but only if you reuse the card. Like it's actually so sick. And they've got all the siege engines and stuff now as well have all been buffed, right? It's like quite a lot of stuff you can do with NR. I think I was even playing some Royal Guards. You can do Royal Guard Megascope, like just so many options.
Yeah, I agree. When I looked at NR, I was like, geez, there's so much stuff you could try. You could go siege engines, you could go like some kind of patient engine, you could play like a more traditional like shield wall deck, but with the new patient cards, some big like threats like what's his the guy that can create a spell. Or you could go like you could try some shenanigans with, as you mentioned, Royal Guards. That's an interesting concept. You can I feel like the possibilities are almost endless with NR. Obviously not all these things might end up being like viable in the end, but like at least for now, there's so many different possibilities for NR. The rework really was quite cool to see all the different things that now can be played.
Yeah, I'm even excited for Stockpile, and if people can actually probably not make that work, that would be quite cool with the machines and stuff. But yeah, lots of stuff.
Do you think they need to nerf Witchers to make it actually get played, though? Because I know a lot of people in the chat, for example, are saying you could just play Witchers because Witchers is good. Witchers is boring, though.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Witches is still going to be the top of the meta. Maybe we'll gravitate back towards Witches. We'll have to see.
I mean, Witches wasn't like that OP. Like they were just pretty decent, and then I didn't have much else that was good, other than maybe Inspired Zeal, right? But with everything being power crap, I can see that Witchers maybe not that strong anymore, and I will need something stronger than Witchers to actually compete. Which maybe they have now. We'll see.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, as Freya has mentioned, the patient engines, it's kind of interesting playing engines in round 1, because the thing about engines in round 1 is you play them and then you build up all these engines, you got this whole board set up, and then they die, and then your opponent passes and they go to the graveyard and like, well, that's over. But now, as Freya mentioned, like you can actually resurrect those engines and like carry on where you left off in a way, which is actually a pretty cool feeling. Very, very interesting idea to keep those patience cards, still keeping their charge, or whatever you want to call it, in the grave.
And the Gerhardt card, the Patience Mage guy, that
guy.
That card is so... I love that card so much, man.
Yeah.
It's like so good and so risk reward, like, and so mega 5-head brain have to calculate all the spells in the game, like just to figure out which spell. It's so cool, dude. Like
I'm actually glad you mentioned that because I was looking at that card and I just realized that card is basically like a Swiss Army knife for the different
Yeah.
matchups. Like against V, you got artifact compression and you got Will of the Wisp with the 5 provision slot. Which can completely be a top punish. If you're playing a Swarm, you can wait to get to 6, and then you can use it for, I believe, one of the options was the Tremors. That's a really good card against Swarm. And if you want to go higher, you can find all kinds of different options. There's just so many different possibilities of that card, which can, if you can get him to stick on the board, depending on the matchup, of course, there pretty much is an option that can win you the matchup for any different matchup, assuming the card is able to stick, which is kind of crazy what the card can do. It's nuts.
And then even without his patience, he's got a flipping replay or reset tech option. Like, oh, my opponent's playing spies. Well, okay, I'm gonna replay your spy. Or like, like Doom with the pact, I get rid of the. I mean, you never do that, but like, yeah, it's just so like I don't think there's ever been such a flexible card in the game. Like this card can do so much. Like, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, very cool card. Indeed, I agree.
So should we go? You want to go Skellige? You want to go Monsters? We want to go Square Cell. What have we got left?
I don't know.
Go ahead,
Skellige?
I have not played any Squirtle at all. I don't know what the situation is there. Skellige is very cool. I like Skellige a lot with the Bride of the Sea. That's also another really juiced up card. They've like the card design is so sick on this expansion, honestly. Because you can play like the Rain Leader, and you can like replay Sigdrifa's Right now. So you could play like 3 of a certain gold card if you want, because you can revive it and then revive it again with her. And yeah, I mean, maybe not the strongest thing ever, but it's just a lot of flexibility in some of these cards, I think, which is fun to play with, right?
Yeah, there's some good stuff going on. They've also got the Druid tag, so they're playing a little bit into like Edeneth and that style of things. And then like Fulmar, Fulmar is a weird one because his ability to create like turn rain into storm can be really nice for row punishing, but the issue is like you have to predict which row you're going to punish like 5 turns in advance, right? Because it damages everything on the row. If you can play rain, put lots of rain on a row, and then convert it, you're damaging everything on the row by 1. But the problem is at that point in the game, usually there's not that much on the row, so it's a bit of a weird one. But then on the other hand, he also creates an alchemy card, so you have that synergy, which means you can then thin Crowmother in the turn that you play it. You can also wait on the converting a storm, so you don't have to convert the row that you originally rain on into storm. Like, I like him. I do like him, and I think he has a place somewhere. It's just figuring out exactly how he's going to be used, but I think it's a decent card.
I think finding the right list for this like rain archetype is actually kind of tough because you have to balance a lot of things. I was trying out a all-in rain. I was just raining everything, and then I realized very quickly you got too much rain sometimes, and it's very awkward because you got to get your rain set up, but you also want to answer some of your opponent's threats, and you have a lot of things conflicting. So I think that one is to build an optimized like rain list if one exists. I think is actually a little bit tricky, but there are a couple of things you could also. There's a lot of different things you're gonna do with. You can go you can try a dagger deck with rain. You could try like a Gednith druid alchemy deck with rain package. There's a lot of different types of options. Not sure which one is best though.
I agree with that. I think there's a place somewhere. And bear in mind, like, you can play Fulmar and he can just chill on the board. Like, you don't have to trigger his order, and then later on you could play, say, Avalak, put 3 turns of rain, turn it instantly into 3 turns of storm, hit everything on the row for 1. If you're going against Araka Swarm or targeting those style of swarmy decks, like, that has a lot of potential. And like you said, he techs quite well with things like Crowmother, which is just a generally good card. You're creating alchemy cards, so it does things with Gednith. Like, I don't know, I feel like figuring out the best thing to do with those cards is the challenge. But also they made Drakar 4 provisions, which is nice.
Yeah, they buff some stuff. Yeah, Skellige got some interesting buffs for sure, and yeah, and there's also Squirtle, as you mentioned. I'm not sure what Kolemoen, have you got any ideas for Squirtle? Have you seen anything in Squirtle? Anything interesting appear there?
Well, I mean, it just looks like the new cards support the Nature's Gift archetype a lot, right? Most of them. Well, okay, I looked at the cards and I felt like this elf card kind of just sucks. The one that gives you Leylays.
Yeah.
The Francesca looks really strong in the Nature's
Yeah,
Gift
Francesca.
archetype. Even though I guess the downs that we play in the deck that gives you don't actually have these super powerful spells a lot of the time. But you can potentially trigger her more than once, and you have other threats your opponent has to answer. The other two bronzes also look like you want to play them in Nature's Gift archetype.
I'm not 100% sure on the 3.1 that spawns more copies of itself, because in Nature's Gift, if hypothetically that card survives, I feel like you're going to overswarm with that card with all the
Okay,
all
I guess it
the
could
other.
happen in some matchups, yeah.
Is
You
there
also have
some
the
way you
Wandering
can,
Transpawning.
Yeah,
Can you-
maybe.
can you play it and play a spell on the same turn?
If you have something like Francesca, then possibly. Or that new bronze card that can wait a turn, then it has audibility, and you can play it in the same turn. So you can proc on one turn.
Forge, I guess.
Yeah, or Mac and Forge, of course. Only thing is, like I said, I'm just worried that if you play this card and it actually does stick, it's like with all these Wandering Trends spawning and these more of these cards spawning, I feel like you're just gonna. At that point you may as well play Bone Talismans.
I'm just happy that the Francesca card is not garbage. As a Francesca myself, like whenever they add Francesca content to the game, I'm like, this better be good. We also got 2 new Francesca icons, which means I can now change my original Francesca icon to one of 2 other ones. And there's a new Francesca skin. So in terms of the Francesca meta, I'm like, yes, CDPR, do this every patch. But that's just, being a Francesca. That has nothing to do with Gwent meta or any kind of logic or sanity.
So, out of curiosity, of the factions we've seen, which factions do you guys think came out on the weaker side after the expansion? Which one got like the least love, or the looks the least appealing, I guess you could say? Is there one that kind of feels, or do they just all feel like really good to you guys? Do they all just feel like have a massive possibility?
Well, I don't know. In some ways, Syndicate feels like it got the least stuff somehow, but
Yeah.
maybe it's just, I don't know. I guess you can do bounty stuff. I don't feel super drawn to it personally.
Yeah.
They also started on a position of strength though, so I wouldn't say they necessarily come out the weakest, but maybe they're improved the least. I can see that.
Yeah, I can see that too. That makes
Well, not necessarily even that they've improved the least, just more that they don't have that much. Like, I expect Syndicate to be kind of similar to how it was last patch, just with a few new tools,
They're
Whereas the
probably
other
not very
factions will
different.
probably be like, wow, all crazy stuff for the other guys. Maybe ST as well. It's kind of weird. But in terms of like, if we're talking actual weakest 2 factions, I don't know. That's another question, kind of.
hard to see. And then there's monsters. I mean, what's changed in monsters now? We've got She Who Knows. That's an interesting card. I don't know. It's such a scary card on Redcoin, I find, because if you're on Redcoin, you can either keep your opponent in the round. You tempo ahead, you play your Larva, you play your Thrives, you keep your opponent in the round. And if you give them a pass and they do take the pass, and you go, haha, drop a She Who Knows, and you go into round 2 with a 10-point carry. So it feels really, really scary on Redcoin for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I first saw that card, I thought it was giving resilience at the end of every turn, and I was like, hold on a minute, that was a little bit strong. But I mean, it gives me real beta throwback, like to when Eridin, you could just slam an Eridin on the board and he would just carry over, like these big guys, right?
That's like close beta, right?
Yeah.
The biggest units.
Yeah,
Carry over. Make a huge Akimara for 20 points.
Yeah.
And then was it not like a random unit at one point? And so you'd be like, you'd have like a 4 provision card and a 10, and you'd be like, please pick the 10, please.
Yeah, I think it
was. Yeah, there was one point where it was like that. I think, in some ways, what CDPR are doing, they're looking at what was fun in the past. What did people have a really enjoyable time playing or using, and trying to bring back maybe vibes of that a little bit. And that's kind of what this card is giving. The whole shiny changes is giving that, bringing back weather to an extent, like trying to make, rain and these row effects viable again. They're kind of thinking, what do people enjoy? What was fun about the past? Not necessarily broken, but what was fun? Let's see if we can find ways to redo that in a way that works with the current state of the game, which I'm all for because I got a lot of Gwent nostalgia.
Yeah.
It's definitely an interesting time for sure. Question is, how is it all gonna look after it settles? Because I mean, it's also interesting for the fact we're gonna have another expansion now in 2 months again, right? Like another piece of the expansion. So like we're gonna like we're gonna familiarize familiarize ourselves with this meta. We're gonna all like understand it, and then suddenly, boom, shaked up again, and then we get all thrown in the deep end once more.
Will they do another mega change for a faction like with NR? Do you think, or is it just gonna be more chill this second time round? Maybe they're going to take it a bit easier, print some sort of filler cards and stuff. Don't know.
Yeah, hard to tell.
I think they're going to release about the same amount of cards every time, right? So the question is just how much are they going to change from the old cards? And I think they will probably rework something else. I mean, it seems like they want to consistently just always rework some of the old stuff.
Yeah, make Wolfpack have 3 base power. That'll save it.
Yeah, but then Beast Skellige might be too good, you know. When you think about it, there are these like residual archetypes that kind of they started doing cards for like Beast. I guess Pirates was one to an extent as well, and then they just kind of forgot about them for a while.
Forgot about it, yeah.
And that's kind of how some of these things feel. So you make jokes about Wolfpack, but if you made Wolfpack sort of viable, it then has a knock-on effect of making Beasts better, and then maybe that becomes a thing at some point. But probably not.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, didn't Magpie try build a Beast discard deck for the last Masters or something? He tried for Venica and everything. I think he actually was unironically playing. I think he was unironically playing Wolfpack in that deck as well, right?
Yeah, if you're just discarding it and you want the Beast tag, then Beast, right?
Yeah, so it's perfect in that case. I don't know. I think I'm like quite happy with the state of Gwent. It seems like streaming, like the numbers on Twitch are also really healthy at the moment. Just generally, there's a lot of people who are coming back to see what's going on with the expansion. But also, I think part of that is World Masters, right? Like I think World Masters got a lot of people who were hyped for it in the past or who watched the first season of Gwent coming back to see what's going on, and maybe haven't played since Homecoming or haven't played since those points in Gwent's history, and then realizing that actually, out of Homecoming has like emerged something quite special and something actually that has a lot going for it now. And so I think like that's been really healthy for Gwent.
And I think a lot of it has also to do with live culture. A lot of people know him from the old days and see he's playing Gwent again and are checking him out and therefore check maybe the game out as well again.
Yeah, hope the momentum can stick around as like I said, it's very constant. It's nice. I don't know what you guys feel about it, but me personally, I love when they have like more consistent, even if it's a bit smaller, like changes or patches or expansions, because it just gives you my biggest issue with Gwent in the past has been like there's this big void, like this big expansion, big hype, and then everything kind of just dies down. It's kind of stagnant for like 6 months and then it builds up again. But this way, you keep that momentum going forward more consistently, which I think is actually quite a good thing. I'm not sure if how you guys feel about it, but
if they actually manage to have an expansion this impactful every 2 months, that would be pretty nice. And then maybe in between have some hot fixes and fix the broken stuff.
Also, I feel like the Slowpoke meme, who's like really late to the party, but can we just appreciate how good Mobile Gwent is? Like I feel like the first time I played Mobile Gwent was at a tournament when they were showing off, like it hadn't been released at that point, so it was like a really early build, and it was like janky as hell, and the phone was like constantly vibrating for everything that you did. Like all the animations are causing the phone's vibration effects and stuff, and it was just not good. And then like last week I reinstalled Mobile Gwent, and Mobile Gwent is like possibly the best way to play Gwent. Like now I'm like Demarcation, I understand exactly where you're coming from. Before, when he's like playing Mobile Gwent as his main form, I'm like, what's wrong with Demarcation? But shout out to Mobile Gwent. That's all I want to say on the topic.
I mean,
Spyro stream from bed incoming?
I don't know. We know what happens with if people think my internet connection is bad, wait till you see my Wi-Fi connection. That's even worse because when I try playing Gwent on my phone, I've tried it once or twice. I just keep getting disconnected, which apparently isn't that much different than when I play on PC, but it's bad. So I don't think that's going to be able to be a possibility anytime soon.
You just gotta like wire your phone to the internet somehow. Right.
The problem is my internet's not very stable to begin with, so
Just get better internet, obviously.
yeah,
Would you ever move countries, Spyro?
I would love to, but it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. But at some point, I do kind of want to.
You can move to Poland like you did. Everyone's gonna have a party at Freddy and Spiro's place. Just don't
gather
spill drinks
all
on the
the Gwent
floor.
players.
I mean, a lot of people from Gwent have moved to Poland, right? Well, I mean, not a lot. Well, like you did, Panda did, and then like not Millie, Ryan moved to Poland for a job.
Yeah.
So eventually, over time, and then a lot of like the pro players are just Polish anyway.
Yeah.
So over time, the entire population of Gwent will move to Poland.
I mean, yeah, at this point, Gwent is like half Russian, half Polish, and then another half for everything else. I know I've gone to 150%, but yeah.
Yeah.
But why wasn't there a South African team in the World Cup? That's the real question.
I mean, I was busy casting with you with the whatchamacallit, the
I know I wasn't invited to Team UK. Psh. Rude.
Oh yeah, I mean, Freddie, you're also playing that as well, I believe. Freddie you were playing
I didn't even play any of the games, to be honest.
Didn't you really?
Just I was busy. Yeah.
And Kolemoen, did you play in the World Cup? I didn't actually get a chance to watch.
I played in most of the games even.
Yeah,
okay, so was that
Germany did well.
You guys were juggling some things then with Masters and prepping for Masters and World Cup. Must have been hectic. I mean, now you guys have a lot more like. Is like, do you feel relieved after it's all done, or do you kind of want to like go back already and relive it?
I could take a few more days of break, but after that, I'm up for another tournament. Yeah, I mean it's always fun. I'm up for the challenge.
Yeah, I have a bit of an addiction going on right now, to be honest, mate. Waking up and playing Gwent, and then sleeping and.
Dreaming about Gwent.
Yeah, literally.
That's just the way it has to be. Isn't there the Invitational soon, though? So speaking of tournaments, Gwent tournaments, I feel like I should know when that is as an official Invitational caster. It's in the summer. It's in like July. They tell me things are happening, and I'm like, yeah, sure. Just remind me near the time. That's what happens with this podcast. I forget until like 40 minutes before that we're meant to be doing a podcast. I'm like, oh, I should set up my Streamlabs. This is the one thing. I'm streaming this, by the way. People like Jag never streams. That's not true. I stream this Why No podcast. Thank you very much. So, that's the thing. Anyway, any closing thoughts on World Masters, on esports, on the state of Gwent, whatever you like. Let's start with Freddie. We'll go with you first.
It's in some ways the end of an era, right? The Masters tournament, and hopefully we're entering a new golden era of Gwent. Yeah, boggers. I don't know what to say, to be honest, mate. So, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Kolemoen, you have any closing comments?
Yeah, I'm also not really sure what to say. I'm happy that I could have
won.
And I hope there will be more tournaments in the future that I can win.
That you can win. Oh! I like it. Well, congratulations also to Kolemoen, because you do have to shout him out as being Gwent Master #1. Do you have to like play Payable now to work out who's
I was about to say.
How does that work?
Time to see who's the definitive champion.
Season 3. It's gonna all go down in season 3.
This is like the plot, like the fine-tuning next time on Gwent season 3.
Yeah.
Spyro, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think that is pretty much it. I'm just excited to see all the new stuff, and I can't wait to try out some more shenanigans in the coming days. But yeah, now we get to the fair part of the stream, which is the smile and wave part, which I'm sure Jaggers
We're not quite there. No, we got to do that. We got to do
not
that.
there?
Don't
Oh,
forget
okay.
to follow us
Oh,
on all of our platforms.
right.
Part.
Okay.
If you too
Sure.
enjoy esports, you can always subscribe to the Team of Earth and Gaming Twitch channel, where the price of power is 1 subscription, and in return, you get some emotes. Yeah. And also, actually, all the proceeds from that go towards esports for TLG. So we put the money we make from subscribing back into the Gwent community, basically. If you follow us on other... I don't even know what podcasting platforms are. I'm supposed to say this every time. You know, don't forget to follow us on all good podcast platforms, which I think is like Spotify and Apple and... I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know much either.
But yeah,
Don't
we're on
have to
all
be.
of them apparently, and on YouTube, I think. So like and subscribe, There we go. I've done it. Done the bit. Now we smile and wave, and hopefully see you guys
yes.
in the next episode. So thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll catch you next time. Now we smile and wave.
Bye bye.